Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. Together, we are bringing you ideas about education, entrepreneurship, and relationships that are both inside
and outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook.
And leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Today, we have the pleasure of having Nick and Desiree with us, and they are going to help us talk about entrepreneurship, relationships, and maybe even some education as we get to know them a little bit more. Welcome, Nick and Desiree. We're so glad you've joined us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We're glad to be here.
So as we get started, first off, we'd like to have you tell people a little bit about what you do in the spaces that you're occupying and what really is driving you forward right now.
Yeah, I guess I can start.
Okay.
So my name is Nick Wingo. This is my wife, Desiree Wingo. We have been married for 15 years, and we have had an incredible journey through our lives. I was a firefighter for 18 years. I suffered significant post-traumatic stress and had to leave my job. And my wife has supported me significantly through that process. We have just really been on a journey of really figuring out what entrepreneurship is, what it looks like, and how we can use it to get out of our what our normal was in our previous life. And so really entrepreneurship for us has been new over the past couple of years. When I left the fire department, we really were understanding what we were going to do and where we were going to go, because my identity was caught up in being a firefighter, and that was what defined who I was. And so leaving that has been a fairly difficult journey of figuring out what to do with ourselves and how to operate in this new world of entrepreneurship. It's been quite the journey for us.
Yeah, so that really brought us, as he left the fire department, to really start evaluating our purpose, where we were going, what we were doing with life, kind of like a reset. And so we both started working through trauma and like just starting doing a lot of inner work and trying to be like, where are we going? What are we doing? And in that process, we really just started realizing like what matters. And Nick built his brand, Building Grit, which is all about, I'll let you explain Building Grit, and then I'll explain mine.
Yeah, so my brand is all about post-traumatic stress and self-discovery. So once I left treatment, I lost several coworkers over the course of my career, several to suicide, several to line of duty deaths. And in fact, when I left treatment, one of the guys I was in treatment with, when we got back, he committed suicide. And so I went on this path of really discovering what healing was for me and really finding everything that I could to help to manage my post-traumatic stress, because I believe the post-traumatic stress is something that never goes away. It's just something that you learn to manage.
Yeah.
So right now, I've been working with men on helping them to rediscover their emotions and their feelings, and really get connected with their inner selves. And I use things like breath work. That's one of the big modalities that I use personally, is the breath to come connected back to the body. And then once there's a connection back to the body, really discovering what's truly within you. And so that's kind of where my brand has taken me, and that's where the space I'm in currently.
And then when Nick was in treatment, I realized I just had a bunch of stuff I'd been shoving down, a bunch of my inner child trauma, just kind of was sexually molested, never talked about it till I was older, just a lot of stuff I'd shoved down and never dealt with. So I started working through that, through counseling and through other healing modalities. And then I ran into Christ-centered yoga, which is really, during this point in my healing, I realized I was a reformed people pleaser. I just I just realized a lot about myself, that I wasn't honest, that I wasn't being in integrity. I'd show up one way here and one way here and just stressed out and always working on making people happy and not really being authentically myself. And so I started being like, what do I want? Who am I? And I'm like, I want to live an aligned life. Like, I want my priorities to match how I'm living. And then, like, as we started healing, it was our roles and our relationship changed, right? Because I was more in the shadows, like behind Nick, and more of just like, wanting to please people, wanting to make him happy, not wanting to ruffle feathers, wanting to tend to the kids, all that stuff. And then so for me, it was learning to have a voice, use a voice, and then learning the healing of modalities of movement. I started learning like how trauma is stored in different areas of our body and how movement heals that, and the power of the mind. And then when you bring in the yoga, I could have my faith keeping God at the center, because God is what has kept our relationship together. And so it's been like me tying that all in with yoga, with God being my center and the strength of the mind, and then being able to tap into like the strength and the warrior and the positions and bring in the breath and the healing. And like, for me, it brought everything together when I had lived this life that was so chameleon oriented, show up this way for this way, don't let anybody see I'm hurt, holding these deep wounds. And this was like this, I can be me. And so then we came together and brought it together, and it's been teaching our kids that. So bringing our kids into some breath work exercises and yoga and feeling our feelings. And so for us, that's been learning how to do life different and modeling that for our kids. And sorry, we've been talking a while. We should turn it over to you.
I love it because it's that entrepreneurship journey. And a lot of people think, oh, sometimes you just like jump in with both feet and you just kind of like go for it. But then other people, like you were doing, you've been building and exploring and working on things. And entrepreneurship, especially people who are just starting out, need to hear that there's different stories, different paths to how you get into this thing called entrepreneurship. So
yeah, and it's amazing. The more we talk to people, the more entrepreneurship is pretty much trauma related. So it's like people who are just fit into society and going through life normally can take that 9-to-5 job and be okay and live that and be okay. But it's when people get hurt and don't fit in and stuff starts going wrong, that they have to get out, that they find entrepreneurship. So like trauma is like the birthplace of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. And I love how you were saying that you were like rediscovering yourself because your identity was in the firefighter identity for so many years. I totally agree with that and understand that, because being a teacher for 27 years and now stepping away from that classroom teacher role and rediscovering myself as this entrepreneur who's trying to bring education to families and help them, I totally understand and resonate with that. Exactly.
And so we've been married, how many? 33?
Yeah.
33 years.
You say 33, I say 31, but
because if the wedding were actually important, then the divorce rate wouldn't be so high. So the relationship comes when two people make a commitment for life or longer and actually mean what they say. So the for better or for worse. So when you got hurt, she took the for worse seriously.
When
she
he
got sick,
hurt,
when I got hurt, she took it seriously. She got dizzy, I took it seriously. So we've had lots of ups and downs, and that commitment to each other. So I've been married longer than she is.
Yeah, I go by the date on the paper, but that's okay. Anyway, so yeah, no, I mean, it's just amazing and beautiful how being entrepreneurs hopefully can bring you closer together. And that's what I was hearing through your story, is that your relationship has actually gotten stronger. And, we've been entrepreneurs for from in and out, back and forth for 30 some years. So it's been interesting as our relationship has grown and built as well. So take us a little bit more into your breath work and your healing modality there. What maybe kind of training have you done? How are you like presenting that to people to help people out? Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so I went out and I started seeking any modality I could for the healing, and so my journey started out really after I came out of my 35-day timeout. I like to call it my 35-day pause in life that I took in treatment.
I like that.
I realized that this was going to be a lifelong commitment towards managing the stress. So I went out, I started seeking anything I could. And I went out and did some psychedelics, which helped me significantly. Ketamine, it helped me, psilocybin helped me to get off my my medications, my daily medications. But those things are great. They're not something that you can use daily to manage your stress. And so I was looking for something that daily I could use to manage my stress.
Right.
And that's when I was watching my wife and what she was getting into, and she had been looking into breath work, and so I got interested in it. And I went to Tulum to learn about. I went to a 5-day retreat to learn about. This was really my first full interaction with breath work. I had been doing Wim Hof breath work. So I had started out doing Wim Hof breath work, and I started to realize how powerful the breath work was. And so I just wanted to dive deeper into it. I went to Tulum for 5 days. I did a fully immersed conscious connected breathwork teacher training. And actually, when I was there, it was some of the deepest states I have been in to this date, was doing the conscious connected breathwork. I was reaching as high a states as I had been in with the psychedelics, which was rather surprising to me. And when I came back from that, I had added this new tool to my system that was very powerful. And the conscious connected breathwork is really great. That also is something that can't be used daily because it takes you very deep. It's open mouth breathing. It's very intense. You get into very deep states. It is something that is very powerful. But I just knew that it wasn't going to be it wasn't enough for what I was seeking. So then I went to Ibiza, Spain for an 8-day immersive class. And this breathwork is called Soma breathwork. And Soma breathwork is rhythmical breathing to binaural beats with breath holds and Om chanting. It's a very powerful breath work. The music that's used is very powerful. And so this is the breath work that I lean into on a regular basis. This is the one that I teach the most because I can alter the breath and I can incorporate conscious connected breath work into those sessions. And so this is what I use. This is what I teach. This is what I share with people on a regular basis. I do a couple sessions a week, and it is just, it's really amazing what you can do with your breath. And if you haven't done breath work, if you had an opportunity to do breath work, time and time again, when I do sessions with people, they're always blown away with what happens with the body and where they go. So that's a little bit about how I've used the breath work and where I'm at with it now.
Question.
Her turn.
Yeah, Desiree's turn. Yeah, tell us more about your yoga and the Christ-centered or the Christian-centered. Yeah.
So mine is I do some workshops and I do classes, and there's so many different types of yoga. So yin is really my heart, my favorite. That is where you learn to find your edge and you back off a little and you kind of get used to sitting in the discomfort. And so the yin is a lot of finding your edge, sitting in that discomfort and holding it there. And so when you incorporate the Christ-centered in that, I have, it's a lot of like spiritual connection, and I do both. But Christ-centered is really my passion, just because I've had a lot of healing there. And again, we talk about movement and where we hold stress, and there's a lot of healing that can take place even without words. And so that's really my favorite. But there's also like restorative that I love, that's just really allowing your body to rest. And in that, like for me, it's a lot of giving gratitude. There's just power in giving gratitude, like there's a lot of positions just resting, like being able to find the beauty in resting your body and just allowing yourself to receive, and that give and receive relationship. And then there's, of course, some more of the flows that's finding like your warrior and your strength and finding your power. And so I do so many different styles, and I think it just depends on what your goal is, where you're at with life, like what you're wanting, and to learn to bring more balance into your life and learn the beauty of finding your strength, but also being able to surrender and feel that flow, and being able to tap into your body and being mindful of like, what is my body telling me? Where am I feeling this? And like a lot of our healing that we've done, that we do with our clients, is like learning to notice where you feel it in your body. So a lot of yoga is, a lot of people are shut off, like especially me with sexual trauma. I had shut off like the feeling in my body, and I had shut off my intuition. And so for me, it was rebuilding that connection to self and that intuition and feeling my body, and like learning to know, ooh, okay, I feel my throat closing in. Like for me, that's like sadness. And so like I feel the sadness in my throat before my tears start welling up, and like learning to know that, because when you feel it in your throat, like I can catch it before the tears start going sometimes. And there's times to release it, right? There's times when it's a safe environment to release it. And that's a lot of my classes, is creating that safe environment. But there's also times where you're like, ooh, I'm in control. I can catch this, and you can catch it before the tears, right? Or you learn to recognize, ooh, this is off. Like for me, like knowing where my anger is, feeling my anger, and knowing that there can be a power in anger, and anger can be used good, and learning how to have the power to turn the anger off and to have the control to turn it on. And so like yoga helps me gain that self-control, right? And just really feel it and connect all the pieces. And so, yeah, that's a lot of what I do.
That is so awesome.
But
Amazing.
one little connection I would like to make, I've worked with some really nice yoga teachers, and some of them it's about the movement, but a lot of them it's more about the breath than the movement. So I work with a lady who spent several years in India in ashrams, and they would spend 45 minutes breathing and 10 minutes moving. So the combination of the two, and how you two are finding to bring them together is actually pretty wonderful. So your story matches ours quite a lot. So
the ups and downs of relationships, the traumas, different things. Yeah.
The stuff you're saying, it's like, instead of having, my questions are more like, ooh, have you heard of this? Because it's like
more of a sharing of information,
more of a sharing,
kind of wanting to happen.
Because it's like, it's so beautiful to actually listen to your story and how you're coming together and finding these as well,
and how the couples work together. One thing that you mentioned a little bit earlier was your kids, and that you sometimes do some of these sequences and things with your kids. Tell us about that a little bit, because bringing education home is about that. How do we help our families? How do we educate everybody in the family, not just the kids? And education, not just book learning, but being real humans. How do you breathe? How do you control your anger? How do you deal when you're sad? Can you tell us a little bit about what you do with your kids with all of this?
Yeah, one of the things that we really lean into, that we really think is very important, is emotional intelligence. So I think that emotional intelligence is lacking in society, really, and really lacking in our children. There's not a lot of learning around what emotional intelligence is, and how to share your emotions, share your feelings, and allow those things. So one of the things that we do is we do check-ins. And so we all have our animals. I'm the wise teddy bear.
I'm a vibrant butterfly. Annalise is rainbow unicorn, and Owen is curious dog.
Yeah.
Love it.
We share our animal names. So it would say like wise teddy bear checking in, and I am feeling. We have an emotions wheel, and our emotions wheel has faces on it. So the kids can identify the faces to help them identify whatever the emotion is.
Right.
And so then we share, I am feeling excited, loving, tender. And then we give context around that emotion.
Okay.
And then we say that we're in. And so that is giving our kids their ability to share their emotions and just recognize them. Because otherwise children will just shove down their emotions, and they do what they are taught and what they see.
Exactly.
right? So as we teach these things to them, we notice that they speak to us more. Like we do tuck-ins every single night where we come in together as a united front to tuck our children in.
Yep.
And we notice that in those tuck-ins, as we've been doing emotional check-ins, they are more apt to share what's going on with them.
Kind of like how their day went or anything that's bothering them. Love it.
And then based sometimes on how their check-in goes,
Mhm.
like if they need grounding, we do barefoot walks, or like we are mindful too of like bringing in more grounding like we try to do that anyways,
Mhm.
but kind of based on their check-in kind of determines sometimes where we go from there. But like breathing, one of the things like simple that we do with our daughter in particular with breath is like tracing the finger out and in and out when she gets like worked up. When she gets really worked up, she gets like hives on her face and gets really like red and stressed out, and like a lot of mindfulness around that. And Nick, with doing the Soma breath work, he ties in like a lot of shaking, like shaking it off. And we'll do like a lot of dance parties and have the kids like pick the music or pick something to engage. And then we add things in. So we'll do like add in type exercises. And then we do sometimes like partner yoga or evening stretching and just like different ways to engage and kind of tie things in to make it fun.
And simple things, even like I Spy, right? I Spy is simply a game of mindfulness.
Exactly.
Right. And so we are, we've learned in our journey that mindfulness is one of the most key things in managing your anxiety and your stress. Because when you slow down and just look around, like I find myself so often now slowing down and just going, wow, look at the mountains, look at the sky, look at this tree, look at the birds. So we teach our kids the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you smell, and then 1 thing you taste or something you're grateful for.
I love
so those are the type of things that we're incorporating for them in hopes that they will have the things that we didn't have growing up that we're learning now.
That is so awesome and amazing. I love it. And that's, part of our education model is having those kinds of things that we share with parents so that other parents who are not quite where you are with their kids can help share and help them grow and develop that whole body, that whole person experience. Yeah.
No, I'm just blown away. I just keep thinking about things that we did that are similar.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like in her classroom,
before I left my classroom.
Before she left, we had like a bell set up, and the bell would go off, and then all the kids would just stop whatever they were doing and take a deep breath. And there was another bell that they would stand up and stretch for 10 or 15 seconds. So these little things that I had picked up along the way, we actually started incorporating into her classroom.
And it was right in the middle of teaching. The bell was random. I didn't even know when it was going off.
And the kids came so much more to life and became so much more grounded, and just broke them out of their little trance throughout the day. These little practices, just a little breath here, a little thought there. So what you're doing is absolutely amazing and so needed. I wish we had found a way sooner to broadcast this message like you guys are doing now.
Yeah, that is awesome.
I think the crazy thing is that we wouldn't have discovered this stuff without the pain. And I think lots of times we're always so eager, like we want to get through the pain. We want the instant gratification. We want the things now. But looking back, like we're so like grateful that we gained these tools, and now we're learning when we're going through the pain, when we're going through these things, that like this beautiful thing gets extracted from that. And it sounds like that's like been a lot of your guys' story too, is the beauty that's coming through that.
Yeah,
it's really great when you're actually in that painful moment and stuff is really falling apart, and you can, in that, like, oh, this sucks, realize, oh, hey, this is going to be really
useful. Okay,
I see where this is going, and it sucks now, but this is going to be good. So if you can find in those moments of, oh, this is horrible, but it's going somewhere.
Yeah.
those are little miracles in the moments of grief and pain.
Yeah.
Definitely, and it's so interesting because the science really shows us that that's what the case is. And one of the things that I lean into with this pain thing is the brain waves. So the beta brain waves, the high beta is the highest frequency, and that's where it's almost the highest frequency in our brains.
Right.
And that's where the monkey mind is, where our thoughts are just going like crazy, where even like psychosis is. But what the crazy thing to me is that the gamma brain waves are just one step above that. It's a higher frequency. And gamma is where the bliss is. That's where the yogis say where enlightenment is in the gamma brain waves. So scientifically, our brains even show us that through that painful craziness, one frequency higher is bliss.
Yeah. So I did a breathing. I have a hyperbaric chamber. So I have a traumatic brain injury. So I have a hyperbaric chamber, helps me. I did a version of Wim Hof in my hyperbaric chamber for an hour straight once. And it hurt so bad, like I locked up, but the stuff that was going on in my head, I later was able to do 5-MeO DMT as part of one of my healing journeys. And they were so very similar. I got to this giant white thing and this giant eyeball was staring back at me. And I think I actually passed out a couple of times and woke up and just kept breathing. So like
getting to that higher state, right?
Hurt it for me, the way my body works and the trauma that I have. But once I got through that, and in that, it was a euphoric, weird, blissful thing that you just can't quite get to on psychedelics. That's something you have to get there on your own. But with a traumatic brain injury, my doctors actually recommend the psychedelics for the rewiring and the neuro repatterning that goes along with it.
Exactly. Yep. But one thing we've talked about a lot with other people that we've had discussions with is that, you use the psychedelics or the other therapies, medicines, whatever, to help open yourself up so you can get to that next step of the breathing or whatever, to make those connections, to keep the work going.
The psychedelics
are
not a fix. It's not a cure. It's not a, hey, this is going to fix your problems. What that does is it gives you just a little bit of room, just a little bit, to be able to be mindful and step back from the problem and give yourself control. Sometimes even just half a breath and maybe even a full breath before everything goes wonky. So it just helps you figure out where the work you need is. It does not fix things, but it gives you opportunity to,
and like what you're doing the work, you're talking about it, you're working through it, you're thinking about it, you're doing the breath work. Exactly. So making that whole big connection is so amazing. I was thinking about the kids one more time. In your entrepreneurship, when you're like building your business and building your brand, are you sharing any of that with them? Are you sharing kind of the entrepreneur spirit with them, or is that still kind of separate from what you're teaching and learning with them?
It's definitely something we share. Something we talk about. Owen actually turns 11 on Monday. And so one of the conversations we've been having is, hey, dude, you're 11 years old and like you're going to be 16 in 5 years and you're going to want a vehicle. Right. And so how are you going to produce income in order to have that vehicle? Because I'm a huge proponent of there being buy-in to whatever it is that you have. And so I'm not the type and I think that Desi's up for it. This is something still that we're kind of working through. Currently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I feel like, the conversation has been, hey, if you're going to want a car, what are you going to do to produce that income to be able to own that vehicle? So we talk about like what are things you could do? Right. Well, I'm willing to buy you a lawnmower and you can go out and hit up every person in the neighborhood and see if you can mow their lawn for $10 a week. You can do dog poop. You could do like, here's the things you could be doing. So we are constantly putting the ideas in their minds of, hey, if you want to do something with your life, you're going to have to make some money. And these are some things that you can do at a young age to do that now and start to instill that into them at this young age of like, hey, you don't have to go out and work for someone. You can do things on your own and create your own income and create your own ability to bring in money. So it's definitely a topic of conversation.
And I think a lot of it that we're trying to tap in is like to tap into that creativity. Like, how can you like have things work for you? How can you use your gifts in a creative way that that people aren't thinking of, that people aren't doing? What are ways? So mainly to encourage them to like think differently, not just think how we're programmed to think, but to really take a different perspective. And again, this ties into yoga, right? Like for me, like inversion poses and stuff, right? Like learning to look at life different. And so that's kind of how we tie it in, is with their creativity. And sometimes we bring them in on like our podcast and like different perspectives. Like they think that's cool to like be part of it too. So sometimes we're physically bringing them into entrepreneurial world with us. But a lot of times like it's to get them just thinking different.
I love it. Exactly.
Yeah, because an 11-year-old's podcast about yoga and breathing would be
that would be pretty interesting.
Would be a pretty interesting little niche that's not, mom, dad, kid to get. Yeah, just a thought.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of mowing lawns, it might be a little easier than mowing lawns and picking poop, make a yoga video with mom and dad and start putting that online. So
yeah,
totally.
But yeah, I mean, both of it, either the physical work that they're like the physical activity or the more creative online it's so amazing to get those conversations started.
Yeah, there's so many amazing personalities. So one of the things that I've been learning with the stuff going on in my head is about personalities and personality traits, and how different people are at a fundamental level. And so the simplest is the introversion versus the extroversion. There are so many introverted people that disappear into the background in school and aren't taken care of. And then the extroverted people seem to do really well. And then there's some so these personalities, as they go through life, people think they're bad or wrong or good or bad because they don't fit into normal, but there really is no normal. So part of what we're trying to bring into it as well is this realization of the different personality types and how individual people are as well. And I have no idea where I'm going with this now, but it was really cool a little while ago.
It's to help them know that they aren't wrong or they aren't weird, that they're their person, and that the personality type is to inform their actions. Kind of like you said, tying into the emotions. Why am I having that emotion? Well, if they understand their personality type, then they also know, oh, well, I'm having this reaction because my personality is trying to protect me, or my personality is trying to do this. And it's not that they're stuck there, but they can inform their action or reaction based on how they know the personality types.
Yeah, and once you also get into that, then you start getting into the cognitive functions. So as I'm an INFJ, so I'm an introverted intuitive. So I spend most of my time in my head. I go very, very deep. I have a lot of the way my brain works is incredibly, incredibly rare, because my personality type is like less than 2% of the population. And a guy INFJ is even a quarter of that. So I'm like 1 in 400 in a room. So the way my brain works is really off and different. So there's not a lot of people like me. So most of my life, I felt very alone and very isolated. And had I had some of this information about my personality and how it works and the things that then I would have had the tools to better mindfully fit in with more people. And that's basically what I'm doing now, is I'm taking these tools that I'm learning that I should have learned 40, 50 years ago, that
and help. So with his coaching and things. So talk about anything that's coming up with you. Is there anything in your business, in your brand, that you're excited about that's going to be coming up in the new year, etc. Actually, we have something together kind of in the new year in January. There's a men's retreat going on and a ladies retreat going on that we're accepting applicants for. Exactly. I'm excited to work together and actually be in the same space with you guys at that point. Anything else?
We are working through that currently right now. Where our heart is eventually, and where we're just not quite there yet, is that we do want to work with married couples and do marriage retreats.
Yes.
Currently, that is something that we are working through what that looks like.
Yeah.
And we're figuring that out. Right now, Desi's still busy with her normal job, and so that puts a constraint on the things that we can do currently.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm leaning into doing men's retreats personally. I'm going to be doing a couple retreats this summer in June and August.
Okay.
Those ones are very special to me because we go out into the woods, into a very special place, a sacred place to me. So we start out actually in our home. Here, take up to 7 men. We do some of the stuff that I currently am doing that's working quite well for me. I do some of the sauna stuff, cold water stuff, the breath work, check-ins, some of the things that men are not used to. So I get into some deep, vulnerable places, and then we go out into the woods in this very sacred place and just participate in mindfulness and really figuring out what I found is that when I take away this thing,
exactly,
or just a brief period of 40 hours, and I go out into the woods, and those that are not familiar of Schumann's resonance. Schumann's resonance is the pulse of the earth, and the pulse of the earth is actually the same hertz as the alpha brain waves. The problem with Schumann's resonance is that it is covered by the electromagnetic fields of the cell phones and the 5G. And so when you go out to a place in the woods where there is no covering of the electromagnetic field from all the stuff that we use, all
the
technology,
wires and the phones and everything.
yes, exactly. You actually are able to have Schumann's resonance, which puts you into your alpha brain waves and gives you the ability to reconnect with yourself. And really, every time I do that, I realize all the things that are the most important to me. And I realize like what I really want out of life. And so it's all about learning how to slow down and just be, because we're human beings and not human doings.
I like that. Not human beings, but human doings. Opposite. Yeah, exactly. I love it. You also mentioned a podcast though, because I want to make sure that we, get everybody out there knowing where you are and what you're talking about. Yeah,
we have a podcast that we do together. It's the Walk as One podcast. Right now, it's just us two rapping. At some point, we're going to start bringing on guests. Right now, it's just us sharing our journey and the things that we've been through and how we're working through, because we realize that there are so many couples who are out there silencing and suffering. They're suffering in silence, and they're not speaking about it. And hey, there are some couples out there that are doing great and work, and they don't have a lot of problems. The truth is every couple fights at some point in their marriage. Every couple at some point is going to have some difficulties that arise. We are just being vulnerable and being raw and real and saying, hey, this is us, this is where we're at, and these are the things we're using to work through that.
Yeah, and so our hope is just to create community around that, right? Like a reminder that me too, you're not alone, and some of the tools that we found that's kind of helped us. So sharing through our humility and vulnerability and just being honest with what we've learned along the way. And so that's our heart, is to continue to grow that. We are looking to launch, like Nick said, our marriage retreats later on, probably later in the year. For us, the wrestling with doing that is our kids, right? Like family time. So we have this heart for marriages, but our kids are also 9 and our son turns 11 this week, which is like such an important part of their life. And so we do have that little tug of war wrestling where we want to be part of it, but we also want to pour into people's marriages. So it's just finding what that looks like and getting really clear on that. And then mine is right now, I normally just work with clients on more of an individual one-on-one basis. I do some group classes, some Zoom classes, a few workshops here and there, but a lot of mine is just really like heart work, a lot of like donation based, and work with some Bible study groups. And for me, it's like just a really deep passion of mine, and just a wanting to share knowledge and tools to help people work through those painful moments.
And we need all of that. We need the sharing, we need the donation of time and building community. And then those who, are doing bigger retreats and stuff, we need all of that. And that building is absolutely amazing and beautiful.
Yeah, people have been telling us that we should like try and figure out how we've stayed together for so long.
Exactly.
and try and do retreats, but
yeah, we're still on work on our communication quite often, as we call it.
Yeah, we even after 30 years, we're still working on our communication. Sometimes very aggressively.
And sometimes
Yes.
no, we love it. Oh, we have loved spending this time with you. Thank you for sharing your insights, your wisdom, your journey. I really hope a lot of people find value in our conversation and get a glimmer of something that will help them move forward. And how is there websites or anything that people can get in contact with you if they want your expertise on these certain topics?
Yeah, the easiest place is just nickwingo.com for me. And we're still working on Desi's website, but it's walkasone.com, and it's the number one, not spelled. So WAOK as one.
Perfect. Love it. Love it. And of course, you're on Facebook, so they can probably look you up and find you.
The website has all our social media links on there, so you can direct link from that. It's the easiest. So
love it. Thank you very much for your time and for being here. This is Bringing Education Home. This was Nick and Desiree, and we are so glad that they joined us today. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.